What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Cjthecheesedj here, and we're back with some more Ark. And today, we are comparing the Dire Bear versus the Ravager. This is another Ark Insight, and we're going to take a look at who's better in terms of stats and power, and then we're going to finish it all off with a battle to the death between the two. Alrighty, so first off, let's jump straight into their stats. So we're going to take a look at the Dire Bear first. Now you can see here he's got 400 health, 500 stamina, 650 weight, and 125.8 melee damage. Pretty solid stats for level 1 base. Now if we come across into the Ravager, he has 400 health, exactly the same as the Dire Bear, 350 stamina, 500 weight, 118 melee damage, and only 135 movement speed. The Dire Bear had 222.5, I believe it is. Yeah, you can see there, 2.6. But they have the exact same amount of health. That's pretty strange. I was not expecting that. Anyway, now that their base stats have been looked at, actually, just let's take a quick look here. So the weight on the Dire Bear is 650. So he does have an extra 150 base weight over the Ravager, which is pretty good. But the Ravager has a few unique abilities, which we'll get into later on in the video about his weight. Alrighty, so let's test their movement speed first. Now, obviously, with the Dire Bear, his movement speed increases the more you run. So the longer you run for, the more his speed increases. Now, this does cap out at a certain amount of speed. You can see here, well, you could have seen there if we didn't run into a tree that we would have reached maximum speed. You can see here that we have pretty much reached maximum speed here, and we'll pretty much sprint this fast for the rest of the time we use running, either until we run out of stamina or until we run into something. So the Dire Bear is probably one of the fastest creatures in all of Ark. So take heed of that when planning on taming these guys up. Okay, so their movement speed was next, and we pretty much had them run from the beginning of this rock here to that rock just behind that turtle there. Now, the Ravager did it in a pretty good time. He did it in about 8 seconds, which is relatively decent, considering he doesn't have the speed boost much like the Dire Bear does. You can see there, that's where it ended. So it took about 7 seconds for the Ravager to reach that point of rock, whereas the Dire Bear managed to do it in 5 seconds. Now, this wasn't him at full sprint speed. This was only him at running speed startup, so we'll come around here, line him up perfectly for him. Turtle, could you please get out of the way? You're kind of ruining things for us. Alright, there we go. So we have the Dire Bear set up here, and you'll see just how fast he did it. He does it in about 5 seconds, which is pretty fast, and boop, we're pretty much there. Now, if we turn around and we bring the Dire Bear back around, you'll actually see that while he's full sprinting, he does this in about 3 seconds, which is really good. So obviously the Dire Bear is the fast amount. However, the Ravager does have the ability to jump. However, in terms of increasing his run speed, it doesn't really do much for him because it's pretty much the same amount of speed that he would while running. So next up we had their swim speed. Now, the Ravager is a very slow swimmer. You would expect, because he looks more like a dog, well, I mean, kind of close to a dog, he would be a faster swimmer. But no, he's actually pretty slow. God dang, that sun is bright. So you can see here, he's able to move, at a decent pace, obviously. Now, granted, these guys are aberration creatures, so they're obviously not going to be swimming through that much water because there isn't that much water on aberration. You've only got that little ravine down the bottom there where all the carcanosses live. But, you're not really going to take him swimming. He's perfect for, crossing streams and whatnot and, small bodies of water. But other than that, you wouldn't want to take the Ravager swimming. Now, the Dire Bear is pretty much in the exact same boat as the Ravager. He's not the fastest of swimmers. He's obviously a better runner. But I honestly would say that the Dire Bear and the Ravager have the exact same amount of movement speed between them in the water. The Dire Bear might be slightly faster. I don't know. It looks like the Dire Bear is actually slightly faster than the Ravager. So in terms of turning radius, the Dire Bear's walking turning radius is obviously pretty solid. Most dinos while walking have a pretty good turning radius. But when he starts sprinting, the faster he gets, the wider his turning radius will become. Which, is obviously to be expected. It'd be great if the Ravager wasn't in our way. We'll come over here. But you can see, obviously, the more you turn, the more, obviously, your turning radius becomes. It just becomes slightly bigger, but it's nothing to worry about. He still has a really good turning radius. And I would not put him down for his turning radius. Now, for the Ravager, his turning radius is pretty much exactly the same as the Dire Bear's. He's actually got a little bit of a wider turning radius, you can see, than the Dire Bear while sprinting, actually. Oh, probably about the same, to be honest, although the Dire Bear does have the added advantage of being able to move faster while sprinting, so there is that advantage. But, their turning radiuses are fine. I wouldn't really worry about them too much. Now, in terms of special abilities, the Ravager has really one main one that you want to try and use. So he's got a bite attack. Obviously, we're going to quickly just go through their attacks as well. Now, he's got a bite attack which you use to gather more hide then meat, and then he's got a swipe attack which you actually use to gather more meat than hide. Now this is greatly beneficial for obviously if you want to get more prime meat and not bother about the hide. You can with the Ravager swipe attack, which is perfect for taming up other carnivores, but if you want the hide you can still attack with his bite attack and get hide as well. Now in terms of special abilities, the Ravager has the ability to reduce the weight of base materials on his inventory. So we're just going to drop all this quickly. Now you can see here this stone weighs 1.5 on us. We transfer it over to his inventory. It only weighs half of that at 0.8. Now he can do this with all raw materials, so wood, stone, metal, raw metal, uncooked metal, has the ability to be halved in his inventory, which is a great way to do metal runs if you have access to these guys on the other maps such as Ragnarok and the Highland, because you can essentially pick them up with an RG, have a huge amount of weight on these guys and just use them to fill up on metal, and they reduce the weight of metal by half. Now that's only obviously if you don't have an industrial forge up on your mountain or whatnot, but these guys are great in terms of that. But other than that, they don't really have any other special abilities other than their Nash ability, which they get while they're in a pack and they are wild only. Why you don't get that ability when they are tamed is beyond me, I have no idea. But they also get the pack boost bonus as well when in packs, which allows them to get extra attack damage. And, you know, obviously they become the alpha, and the alpha deals more damage. They also have a little bit of a howl. You can see there's his little howl that he does. It's kind of cute. So yeah, that's all the Ravager really has going for himself, and the ability to jump, obviously. Now, aside from the Dire Bear's huge sprinting speed bonus, the Dire Bear also has two attacks. A primary attack, which he does a bite attack, and a secondary attack, which is like a swipe attack. Now, both these attacks do quite a bit of damage. We'll go into that a bit later on. But he also has a new passive ability, which he got from the TLC pass, which allows him to not be targeted by bees when harvesting honey. Now, you can see in the bottom right corner, you have some protection from bees as well. If you decide to attack the beehive with the bear, the bees will actually attack the Dire Bear and not you, preventing you from being knocked off the Dire Bear, which is a great way to gather honey and try and tame up yourself a queen bee. You can see here, if we do the swipe attack on the beehive, we get 15 giant bee honey and we don't aggro any of the bees, which is a great way to gather honey, obviously, because you're going to need honey to tame roll rats in Aberration to make sweet veggie cakes and whatnot. And you can see here, the bees don't actually attack us, they attack our Dire Bear. So this is a great way to prevent yourself from taking damage from the bees and to be able to tame yourself up your own queen bee using this method. Because obviously you're going to be dealing damage to the hive. You can see there, we're hitting the hive for 424 with the Dire Bear. This is a great way to tame queen bees up, and you can see there is the queen bee, and that essentially allows you to tame her up to get your own honey farm, which, like I said, is a great way to tame roll rats, Dire Bears, you know, all the dinos that use honey, the mammals I mean to say, sorry. So yeah, that's all the Dire Bear really has going for himself. Next up is melee damage. Here we have a trike in front of us. Now we'll showcase the melee damage, 62 with the Dire Bear's primary attack, and his secondary attack does more damage at 81. Now, the difference between these two attacks is that while sprinting, he can use the bite attack. However, while sprinting, he can't use the paw attack. He actually has to come to a full stop to be able to use the paw attack. Now, I forgot to mention this as well. The Dire Bear is also able to gather berries and meat off the corpses of bodies and hide as well. So he's also acts like an omnivore. He's able to eat these as well, and you can use them to pretty much buff his damage. No Gigantopithecus, stop trying to kill the trike. Okay, next up, the Ravager. Now, the Ravager, like I said, has two attacks, his primary and secondary. Both these attacks deal the same amount of damage, 29 and 29. Now, much like the Dire Bear, the Ravager can also do the same thing, run and bite. However, to paw, he has to come to a complete stop to be able to use that attack. So take that in mind when you're planning on using these guys up. Now, like I said earlier, the Ravager's secondary attack is for meat alone, while his primary attack, you can gather hide as well as chitin with it. Now, like I said, the Dire Bear is also able to gather hide and meat from the corpses of dinos, which makes this guy a great all-around purpose mount. You can see here, 18 raw meat, 26 hide. In terms of pure gathering, the Dire Bear did just gather more raw meat and hide than the Ravager did. However, with his secondary attack, the Ravager would still probably get more meat than the Dire Bear would. Okay, next up, we have the battle to the death. Now, we have to take the saddle off the Ravager first. We forgot about that. So, we've unclaimed the Dire Bear, so the Ravager will be getting the more hits in. Now, the reason we unclaimed the Dire Bear and not the Ravager is because the Ravager actually deals a lot less damage than the Dire Bear does. So, we're going to see how this plays out. Let's just get that whistle back on again. Alrighty, here we go. The battle is going to be underway. my money is hands down on the Direbear. I don't think the Ravager will be able to dish out enough damage to kill the Direbear. They do have the same amount of health, however, the Direbear just hits a lot harder than the Ravager does. And you can see it's already over for the poor Ravager. We're going to quickly jump off here and take a quick look at his stats. He's on about half health. So he took about 160, so he's on about 240 damage is what he took from the Ravager. But these guys make great mounts, both of them. The Ravager for his weight reduction ability, and the Direbear for just his all-round purposeful mount. He deals a crap ton of damage. He can sprint fast, he can carry a lot, he's got great stamina on him. You can use him to gather honey, berries, hide, meat, fiber, everything. This guy is your all-round purposeful mount, and he's a great addition to any tribe. So I definitely recommend taming up the Direbear if you have not already. But that'll pretty much conclude today's video, guys. Let me know what you thought of it down below. Let me know if you want to see more of them. Let me know if you've got any dinos you want to see in particular. But other than that, thanks very much for watching, and I hope to catch you in the next one.